So many managers are bringing in Harry Kane, some even for a hit, and taking out Heung-min Son. So why am I thinking about canning Kane?
Is he going to try something special from outside the box? He has, and it's in! A sensational strike! The shot didn't look on, but he took a chance, and it's gone straight into the top corner!
Hello from outside the box. My name is Rob, also known as FPLHaul, and this show is all about fantasy Premier League with a twist. This is my 13th year playing FPL and third year playing properly, but I wouldn't say that I play normally. If you're looking for common chip strategies, game week plans, and the usual players to transfer in, then this isn't the show for you. This show is all about trying to plan and play FPL the differential way, where we try to think of ideas from outside the box. You may or may not have seen me on Fantasy Football Scout streams and videos, or on Twitter at FPLHaulRob, or on YouTube just as FPLHaul. That's where I put content looking at new, different, or dare I say fun ways to play the game. You'll likely disagree with a lot of ideas that I have, but they could just inspire you to go away and create your own strategies and schemes to climb up the FPL ranks. An example of a successful differential plan I created content on was this preseason, where I argued for playing 5 at the back. So not long into the season, then I suggested going expensive at the back, a plan some people dubbed the J-Lo strategy or the mullet. On the other hand, at the start of last season, my plan was to go with a fully balanced squad of 15 players, spreading the funds fully throughout the squad. This meant starting the season without Mo Salah last year, who bagged a hat-trick in game week 1. And that was also the time when Son and Kane went on an absolutely crazy run of form in the early part of the season. All 3 of these players I didn't have until after a few games. Everyone was already reaping the rewards, and it really hurt me. To be a long time to even get inside a million at the start of last season. So be warned, these plans can soar you way up the ranks, but they could equally plummet you all the way down as well. I never suggest or want people to outright copy ideas anyway, here or elsewhere. All topics we discuss here are done to get you guys thinking, talking, and creating your own FPL plans. I think copying what anyone else does isn't the best way to play, and it certainly isn't a fun way to play. And remember that everyone's squads are different and people play differently, so please feel free to discuss and completely disagree here on Twitter or on Discord, wherever, but please do so respectfully and with arguments for or against it. Don't just outright say something is stupid or wrong without any discussion or suggesting why. The fun part of FPL is to discuss our decisions and see if it pays off. And that's what I would like to see here. So speaking of something potentially stupid or wrong, let's get into today's topic, which is selling Harry Kane. Suggesting a player who has 66 points in 7 games, therefore averaging 9.42 points a game, sounds amazing. And it's certainly the kind of numbers that you would want as a manager to consider bringing that player into your team. And those are Harry Kane's last 7 numbers. But here are some issues for me. So first, cherry picking a certain number of games. So I've specifically chosen 7 because in the last 7, he's done extremely well. And it feels like when I see content creators pick a specific number like 7, it sets in my mind a biased agenda. If you double it and go back another 7 games, during that period, Kane only scored 31 points in 7 games, which is less than half of the last 7, and that's only 4.42 points per game. Sticking with stats and looking at the last 6, during his great form, Kane is 7th for goal attempts, 35th for penalty area touches, but 2nd for goals, 4th for non-penalty XG, and 3rd for expected goal involvement. Now, balancing the stats and watching the games are what I believe is the best way to judge a player, and I agree, on field, Kane looks sharper in the last few weeks. Still not particularly world-class except for the Manchester City game, and he's still dropping deeper. I'm still seeing dropping in the hole. Last season, it was great. He was getting the goals and the assists. This week, it's too streaky. So his dropping can be seen on the average position by game week map. I use my stats from Fantasy Football Scout, but you can use other places as well. So in game week 27, he was on average in his own half. And game week 28 and 29, he's closer to the center circle. And his touch heat map shows him hardly ever inside the box, with him mainly touching the ball 20 to 30 yards out on the corner, the right-hand side of the 18-yard box. Having my forward 7th for goal attempts and 35th for penalty area touches whilst being around the center circle and just outside the 18-yard box for touches, yet still having a good XGI, tells me that something isn't balanced or something isn't sustainable. We know Kane has a tendency this season to bang in a big 10, 12, 13-point haul in one week, but then go on a completely barren spell for the next few weeks. And for a 12.5 million forward, that's not what I want to see. Just like when he did that great performance in Manchester City, and the following game, he blanks against Burnley. Looking at forwards in general, they have been well below par this year. Arguably, overall, they've been awful. Dennis has had managers pulling their hair out, especially those who risked the game week 23 triple captaincy when Watford had a good double game week, yet he still sits as the 3rd best forward. Ronaldo's return has had people questioning whether he's actually had a negative impact on the United team, yet he sits as the 2nd highest scoring forward. So now we look at Kane. He's the current number 1. He's an informed player and he has 136 points for this season. But that still puts him behind midfielders Saka and Bowen, and he's almost double the price. And that's where, for me, selling Harry Kane, potentially for Weghorst, the Burnley striker, becomes a plan, a possibility. I've had Kane during one of his several barren runs he's had this season, and I've had him for his current purple patch. But the idea of selling him comes down to cost and potential loss of points. Now, people may argue it's not Kane versus a replacement, but it's actually Kane versus Son. But I don't think it is. I think it's Kane versus Weghorst, his replacement, and 6.1 million. For me, 6.1 million is how much I would get. For you, it's around 6 million. Even if I agree, and I do say it's Kane versus Son, I still prefer Son. Son has been pretty consistent all season. He's 31 points ahead of Kane, and he's just 1 goal behind Harry Kane in the last 6, while sitting just behind him in the key stats. Son is also 1.6 million cheaper, which means that if you do want to do Kane versus Son, it's still not Kane versus Son. It's Kane versus Son plus a 1.6 million upgraded player in your squad. And as an example, that's like changing Kilman into Rudiger. In terms of value, I prefer spending money on midfielders compared to forwards because they seem to have the opportunity to score more points. Take the last game for Spurs against West Ham. Kane gets 3 attacking returns, a hat-trick of assists, but he only gets 2 bonus points. Son gets only 2 attacking returns from 2 goals and gets all 3 bonus points. So it's great that Kane gets 13, but still Son scores more for 1 attacking return less. And also, you don't want your forward to be dropping deep and flicking it onto the midfielder. You want the forward to be the one in and around the box. And that's not something I'm feeling when I'm watching Harry Kane. And it sounds petty as well, but a clean sheet point for a midfielder that you captain is also worth an additional 2 points. And as an FPL manager, you're looking to score points from wherever and whenever you possibly can. Some may argue that Kane is the only forward worth having. Here is where I agree and disagree. He is the only forward in form probably worth having, but he's a 12.5 million player and one that I don't trust enough anymore to captain. You have to weigh up his points potential and his price and weigh that up against what else you would do with that money. 12.5 million for me is expensive for a player that scores 13 points one week, then scores 2 points for the next few game weeks. More so a player that I won't likely captain from now on, not just because of his potential to be streaky, but also because of fixtures. So let's circle back to what I said earlier about Kane versus Weghorst and 6.1 million. FPL is about your team scoring the most points. Weghorst is not a great option on his own, and I do warn people not to get blinded by double game weeks at the expense of quality single game week players. But Weghorst is about to double in game week 31. He's going to have Norwich in game week 32, and he's going to double again in game week 33. So that's 5 games in 3 weeks, where Kane will only have 3 games during that time. Even if Weghorst blanks and scores 2 points a game, that's still 10 points in 3 game weeks for 6.4 million. It's not great, but look at that lovely 6 million extra you'd have to spend on your squad. You could fill your team with double game week players or just greatly improve 3 to 4 players, making it more like, for example, Harry Kane, Kilman, Livramento, and Hwang, which is worth 26.9 million, versus Weghorst, Cancelo, Reece James, and Saint Maximin for 26.3 million. So you're even banking 0.3 million in that situation. I think the latter four outscore the previous four. There's so much you can do with that 6 million, and sacrificing one player to improve 3 other players just might be worth doing. Don't go points chasing with Kane as well. Look forward and think, will Harry Kane score 66 points again in the next 7 games? I personally don't think he will. And those positions to improve with the Kane funds could also be players that I rotate or that I bench, giving me a squad full of depth. Now, that is important to me for 2 reasons. One, I still have my bench boost. Now, whilst I feel the bench boost chip is overrated, it's not overrated when you've got a bench that is worth boosting, not just some usual bench fodder. We're also into the rotation section of the season. So the top clubs with top FPL players are really likely to rotate now as we get deeper into domestic competitions like the FA Cup and the European competitions like the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Europa Conference League. And if you've used that Kane money to deepen your squad depth, you'd still be in a strong position every game week if rotation strikes. So you can bench boost with a strong bench instead of just some bench fodder, and you can attack every game week and not worry that if one of your players is out, you're stuck with some terrible player coming in as a substitute. People have also suggested that there are a lot of good midfield options to replace Son with. So keep Kane because there's no forwards, replace Son. There's plenty of midfielders out there. Actually, I suggest that's where you play the fixtures with your forward. Just bring in a cheap forward who has good fixtures or double game weeks. That's why I've selected Weghorst. But actually, for midfielders, I still rely on Son. I actually only believe Salah is the only midfield option that is superior to Son. And if you sell Harry Kane, all those other great options you're talking about, you will be able to afford them with Salah and Son because you'd have the Kane funds. In short, I prefer Son over Kane because of consistency and value for money. I'm considering dropping Kane down to someone like Weghorst because I'm reluctant to captain Kane now due to his streakiness this season, no real double game week fixtures over the next few, and because he's a forward, therefore there's just a fewer avenue to points. And without captaincy, I just don't feel like now he justifies that 12.5 million price tag, especially when he might get the points, but the rest of your team, because you might have 3 premiums right now, the rest of your team is slightly lacking. So I feel that selling him, if you're not going to captain him, and spreading the funds to have a great first team or a great squad is going to be more valuable. Finally, the money saved by selling Kane for someone like Weghorst could not only improve my squad, but also fill it with double game week players or just create that squad full of depth that covers heavy rotation as well as becoming worthy of a bench boost. Now, for those interested in my personal team, I'm currently ranked at 81,406, and my team includes Ramsdale, Dubravka, Ben White, Thiago Silva, Ben Davies, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Max Kilman, Heung-min Son, Saka, Rafinha, Salah, Barnes, and Kane, Broja, and Hwang. So a reason why I might be holding on to Harry Kane is because I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Now, the common strategy right now is to free hit in 33 and to bench boost in 36. But in fact, I'm actually going to be doing the opposite. I'm going to be looking to bench boost in 33 and free hit in 36. So I need to use my next 3 transfers to bring in players with a double game week in 33, as well as decent potential future fixtures. So currently the plan would be to swap Kilman to a Burnley defender, maybe Roberts or Tarkowski, or Ben Mee if he's back fit. Hwang would go to Weghorst at Burnley as well, and that would also mean Rafinha would go to someone like Ryan Fraser at Newcastle, who has double game week fixtures as well as a decent run in towards the end of the season. So the reason why Harry Kane would stick around is he has a decent fixture in 33, a single game week against Brighton, and I don't want to take out Harry Kane. I don't have enough time to spread the 6 million funds before game week 33. So why do I want to bench boost in 33? If I end up bench boosting in 33, that would give me Ramsdale with a double game week and Dubravka with a double game week. I'll also have White with a double and Roberts with a double at Burnley, with Davis, Thiago Silva, and Trent Alexander-Arnold with single game weeks, but single game weeks that I trust that they will play. In midfield, I'd have Son with a single, Saka with a double, Salah with a single, but Son and Salah have got the quality, Barnes with a double, and up front, I would have Kane with a good single, Weghorst with a double, and Brozier with a double. So why do I want to double with that? Well, first, there's plenty of doubles there, and my single game week players have decent games, or they are good players. So Salah's got Manchester United, which might not be the easiest, but he is a top quality player. Why do I not want to bench boost in 36? Well, this is because I don't really want to have something like triple Chelsea or triple Man City. I'm probably not going to have any Manchester City in my side due to what I spoke about earlier with rotation. I think a lot of people are going to spend the next few game weeks getting in those Chelsea players, getting in those Manchester City players who are fantastic assets, don't get me wrong. But as we get deeper into cup competitions, if Chelsea have got the top 4 sealed off before they get deep into the FA Cup or Champions League, they're going to rotate in the Premier League. So for me, people are going to be bringing in players hoping for a great bench boostable double game week 36, but they're going to probably find a lot of those players that they bring in are going to get possibly rotated out, either in game week 36 or before or after. Whereas if I'm bench boosting in game week 36, that means I'm just going to take one chance for 1 week with a decent bench. So I could go, if they've got a double game week, I could go triple Man City, I could go triple Chelsea, triple Liverpool, things like that. I just don't feel like towards the end of the season, when they're going to be focusing on Europe, I necessarily want to bring in those players long term. Even though the quality, I think as we get deeper into the season and as those teams get deeper into those cup competitions, we're going to have some big rotation questions. Another possible reason to bench boost in 33 instead of 36 as well. Earlier when I said I feel as though the bench boost chip is overrated unless you've got a decent bench to boost. I think game week 36, you might have some rotation issues. But if I bench boost in 33, following that, I can strip the money away from my bench. So if I've got, for example, Kane, Weghorst, and Brozier, I can turn one of those players into like a 4.5 million forward, third sub, never use him, stick him on there. And that gives me another 1.5 to 2 million to put into my starting 11. So if you've got the opportunity to have a good bench boost now, so I've got good single game week players, half decent double game week players that I think will still play. They still need, so for example, Newcastle are not clear from relegation. They still want to get those wins under the belt to get safety. I think those players will play. And when they've finished in game week 33, every single transfer after that can be used specifically and explicitly to focus on my starting 11. I don't have to worry about a bench boost chip anymore, and I can use my free hit chip whenever I want. But I will end this segment by saying, of course, it is team dependent. So when I've set up my team right now, I have several players that have a double game week. I have 9 players that have a double game week in game week 33 with the transfers I'm making over the next 3 game weeks. You might be miles away off. You might have been preparing for bench boost 36 and free hit 33. Of course, that is on you. I just personally don't feel like free hitting in 33 for like Manchester United and Leicester players. I would stick with the players that I've got. And in 36, when it's the supposedly huge double game week with the best possible teams, and I'll risk it for one single game week to get every single best possible player. I'd rather do it that way. Of course, everything is different. Everything is opinion in FPL. So it is down to what you believe is the best move for your team. The final point I'll make today is a player that I'm going to keep my eye on, that if I have a time to bring them in, I think they would be excellent value between now and the end of the season. And that is Trevor Chalobah at Chelsea, the Chelsea centre-half. I think when he's played this season, he's made a really good account of himself. He seems to be quite highly rated down at Chelsea. He has actually played the last 3 matches, all 90 minutes, with 10 points, 7 points, and 9 points. But the reason why I'm going to point him out specifically as well, a lot of people have seen those Chelsea fixtures and they look excellent. Defensively, we do rely on Chelsea for clean sheets. And you can trust that. The fixtures towards the end of the season, it's a sea of green on the fixture ticker. But why would I recommend Trevor Chalobah? Because people want to double up on James and Rudiger. I think that's perfectly fine. But I've mentioned many times today that teams like Chelsea is, specifically, when they're getting far in the FA Cup, they're getting far in the Champions League, and if they've pretty much sorted out top 4 before long, why are they going to be playing Thiago Silva, Reece James, Rudiger, Alonso, Aspilicueta, Christensen? They're not going to play them every single game. So if you're going to take a risk on a player that's only worth 4.7 million, he's 0.1 million more expensive than Max Kilman, who doesn't play in 33, and Wolves haven't been particularly great defensively recently. So if I do have space to bring in a player, or maybe I bring him in after game week 33, if that's when I bench boost, I do think Chalobah is going to be my little diamond in the rough there. 4.7 million. I think he'll start playing Premier League games if they sew up the top 4 and they are still in those cup competitions, unless he progresses so far to the extent where Thomas Tuchel decides he's actually in their first team, but I don't think he's quite there yet. So if these FPL or Premier League games are kind of like dead rubbers with top 4, no problems, then I think he's going to trust Chalobah to play in the Premier League games and play strongest 11 in Europe and maybe the FA Cup. That's it for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to agree or disagree with me on Twitter at FPLHaulRob, or email me from outsidetheboxpod@gmail.com. You can also suggest some football or FPL topics to discuss, or send in or give me any questions that you guys have. Also, if you have enjoyed the podcast, consider giving it a review and maybe share it with people that you know, maybe on your Twitter or Facebook or wherever. And remember, guys, that FPL is all about opinions, and there's so many different ways to play the game. This is just one of many possible ways to play it, and I hope that today's pod has at least given you something to think about. I hope you enjoy the international break, if that is even possible. In the future of this podcast, if I have time, I would love to do more. Maybe get some people on to do this with me as well would be fantastic. I think I might have enough time to do things like this rather than streams. I do try and stream every Friday on my channel, and I try to get on the Scout stream on Mondays, but having a new baby has put all of that on the back burner. But doing a podcast, having a chat, might be the way forward. So if you have enjoyed it, and I do get a good response from it, it is definitely something that I would like to push forward with. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully as well. I'll see you all soon. And as always, have a good one.